Okay guys, so I've developed some mobility routines for you to be doing in your own free time. The reason behind this is, again, with that idea of prehab and just preventing any injuries from occurring whilst you are training here with us. So how it's going to work, I've given you 4 sessions to be doing over the week. You can do more. Each session is going to have a slightly different focus with conditioning elements and strengthening elements throughout, in addition to things like compound mobilization and then isolated mobilization. So the first segment, we're going to focus on upper body mobility and flexibility. So we're going to aim at strengthening the posterior chain in order to allow the shoulders to pull through a little bit more. The first movement is our Jefferson curl. The equipment needed on the Jefferson curl is just going to be a higher step. Okay, I've decided to use the kettlebell just to add a little bit more load. However, I'm used to this. So if you want to regress it down and then progress it, that is also fine. When performing the Jefferson curl, you need to retract your shoulder blades by setting them backwards. From there, your chin comes into your chest and you're compressing each vertebra at a time until the weight descends to its lowest point. Lock out the quads, make sure they don't move. On that way up, really think about squeezing your glutes and extending your back up. You want to get into a nice upright position, then you want to repeat that process through. Big tip guys, at the bottom of this movement, try it with a sharp exhale. It allows the body to compress a little bit more, therefore it means you can get a little bit further down and into those hamstrings. The next movement is known as a Q-out around the world. So from here, you're turning your feet out to a 45-degree angle, squeezing your glutes, extending through the quads. You're then going to take your hands into an overhead position, thrusting your head through the gap provided by your shoulders. From that overhead position, you're then going to laterally flex. From here, you're going to control the descent of the weight back down. Once you get to the bottom, you're going to hang for a second or two, just testing your range. You're going to roll back up, opening shoulders, opening the chest up, finding that finishing or that starting position again. The predominant focal point of this video is going to be based on upper body mobility and flexibility. So, starting off with, we've got what's known as a butcher's block. In the butcher's block position, you are on your knees and you are taking your hands up, making contact with the wall via your palms. You are then going to sink and drop your chest down, extending through the back. You want this nice and active. I always try to make sure that I'm pinning my elbows in, trying to lock my lats in place. Test your range. Obviously, you won't be able to go as low to start off with, but build up to that. Our second movement is known as a banded overhead distraction. From here, we are driving our elbows up, threading it through the band provided. You're then going to walk forward, letting your elbow pull backwards and the shoulder pull into extension. You're going to squeeze your glutes, lock your lower body in place, acting as an anchor point. You're then just going to lean into the stretch. The arm is going to want to go back to the origin of the band, therefore it's going to stretch your lat through. This movement is going to be perfect because it's going to allow, or it's going to develop that sense of overhead stability in addition to overhead range. Okay, that is a crucial element of all training, and it's something that sometimes people tend to neglect. You always hear me bang on about threading your head through the needles, extending through, squeezing the glutes, loading your spine properly whenever you do anything overhead. So this is a good way to actually practice this movement. As you can see, I'm now testing out my newfound range because I've got less restriction provided by my lats. This means I can get into that nice overhead position. The second movement is another form of banded distraction. I've just given this as a bit of an alternative. Sometimes the first movement that I detailed can be a bit too intensive on the shoulder joint. So if you want to make it regressed or a little bit easier, you just go for this option. From here, you're just on your knees, looping your hand through the band, letting your torso sink to the floor. Try and keep your weight back onto your heels, just so you're not putting too much tension through the joint. In this movement, you want to hold either a barbell or a stick, anything with a length to it. From there, you're going to hold it just past shoulder width. You're going to hold with an underhand grip. You're then going to place your elbows on an elevated surface onto your knees, dropping your chest through the gap provided by your shoulders. This movement again is looking to promote that shoulder extension and that overhead position. When you're at the bottom of the movement, take deep breaths. Every time you exhale, try and go a little bit further down. The first strengthening element of this tutorial is a move known as the Astro Boy. In order to complete this move, you must lie flat on your stomach. From here, you are turning your palms over to they're facing the ground. You are then making a fist. From here, pin your shoulder blades back, drive your chest off the floor, making a nice hollow shape with the body. Through the duration of this movement, make sure that your shoulder blades are pinned back, your head is up, and you are squeezing your lats in place, squeezing your glutes, your hamstrings, and pointing your toes as much as possible. The second movement is known as a Superman. Essentially, it's the same positional effect as an Astro Boy. It works on the posterior chain again. However, all you're doing is extending the hands out in front of you, making a fist, turning your thumbs up, driving your chest away from the floor, elevating through. The final movement of this video is going to be known as a prone unilateral raise. The setup is exactly the same as the Superman, however your hands are down and your head is making contact with the floor. From here, you want to extend and reach the arm up as high as possible, tap it out and bring it back. Ensure that you are controlling this movement upon each phase, in addition to making sure you're reducing rotation from the trunk as much as possible.